Hello, Wolfpack family and friends, and welcome to my virtual tour of Reynolds Coliseum. I'm Tom Stafford, retired Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs at NC State, and over the past 10 or 11 years, I've now given a lot of tours, primarily of the bell tower, but now also Reynolds Coliseum. About 4 years before I retired, a student leader on the state campus came into my office one day and he asked me if I would take his group inside the bell tower. You know, I'd never thought about it. And I'd never been inside myself. So I got the key, I took them in, and when I saw how excited they got, I knew then that there was a great potential here for bell tower tours. And since that time, I've now done 600 tours of the bell tower. So thank you for getting me started on those tours, Brian. A few years ago, people began to ask me about doing a tour of Reynolds Coliseum. And I was busy with the bell towers tour, so I didn't really pay much attention. And finally, when this building was renovated, people then really began to ask me for a tour of Reynolds Coliseum. So I took the time to put it together, and today I'm going to share with you my Reynolds Coliseum tour. Even though you're not here in person, I know that you're out there, and like I've told all the groups before you, you are the best looking group of tourists that I've ever had. So let's go inside and take a look at what this building looks like. So follow me. Okay, we're now inside Reynolds Coliseum, and I'm glad that we are because it's November and it's very cold outside, but inside the Coliseum it's nice and warm, very comfortable. We're in the north lobby, and this space was refurbished and made to look a lot better than it did before with symbols and the paint job. But the main part of this lobby that I like the most is the NC State seal that's on the floor of the north lobby, right over there. That seal's got a large S in it. And then over on that side, you may not be able to see it, but on that side, the date is 1889. Now, why did they put 1889 on this seal in Reynolds Coliseum? All the seals that you will see for NC State show the date on which we were founded, 1887. That's the date that we were established, March the 7th. That's our birthday. And all the seals that you see now have March the 7th, 1887 on it. You can see it on my scarf. Now, they put 1889 on this seal because that was the first day of classes. And there's only one other seal that I've ever seen anywhere else on this campus that also has 1889. And if you've taken my bell tower tour, you know that other seal is on the cornerstone of the bell tower, 1889. Okay, let's go through the north lobby and into the Grand Hall. So follow me. Okay, we're coming into the BB&T Grand Hall. This is a beautiful space. This space used to be the end zone of the Coliseum. The end zone seats that students were in, and then the upper level above it. So the basketball court has been moved to the south of the building, which created an opportunity to design and build this beautiful space. The university uses this space for a lot of different things. I've been to meetings, I've been to dinners, I've been to a lot of ROTC commissionings that take place right in this space. Around the sides, you've got the video board over to my left that you can interact with the wolves and play games. It's not on today, but kids really like to come in and interact with the video board. Then a display for our national champions, another display for our conference champions on that side. And then over on this side, my favorite part of the Grand Hall is the NC State Athletic Hall of Fame. And starting in 2012, every year, another set of our greatest athletes, men and women in all sports, are selected to be inducted into the NC State Athletic Hall of Fame. And their pictures and information about them is over on that side. And I've seen, maybe not every single one of these folks compete, but I've seen a lot of them compete, and we're very proud of the accomplishments that they achieved while they were student athletes at NC State. Okay, we're going to go now. Let me also add that at the far end of the Grand Hall are displays on our 1974 and our 1983 national championship teams in men's basketball. And then over to the right of that display is one for our 1979 national championship women's cross-country team. Okay, we're going to go through the Grand Hall and up the staircase. And we're going to go up the steps to the next level. And as we go up, we're going to pass the wolf pack, the modern wolf pack. Some people love the modern look. Other people aren't necessarily so fond of the modern wolf pack. But there they are, 4 modern wolves charging up the staircase. Did you hear that? As you come up the staircase and the wolf pack senses that you're right next to them, they provide a wonderful wolf howl. Okay, come on up to the second level. This display features 2 of our legendary coaches, Kay Yao and Jim Valvano. If you come back and take a look at that, you'll really enjoy information about those 2 coaches. And then if you come over this way, I hope you'll stop and look at the display that features Irving Holmes, who was one of the 4 first African-American undergraduates at NC State. And he was also an athlete. He eventually became the captain of the tennis team. So he's considered to be one of the first undergraduate students and the first African-American student athlete at NC State. And for those of you who may remember Frank Whedon, there's the typewriter that he used to write the stories about NC State athletics. Okay, this is a really good spot because it gives you a chance to look to the north and see the Grand Hall, the space through which we have just come. And then if you look to my right, you'll be able to see in a little further out the basketball court, the volleyball court, the place where our wrestling team competes, the arena. We're going to see a closer look of that in just a moment. Now, when they renovated the Coliseum, starting in the spring of 2015 and finished it by September of 2016, they kept 2 items from the original Coliseum. And one of those original items was the clock that used to be up at the top of that wall. And people who came to the Coliseum in all those early days, they remember that clock, that longine clock that used to be up at the top of that wall. So they moved it from there and put it up in the corner down at that end of the arena. And as we go around, you'll be able to see that. So they saved the clock and they saved the noise meter. And the noise meter hangs from the roof of the Coliseum today, right over there. And you may remember that during a basketball game, as the noise from the crowd grew louder and louder, the lights on the noise meter would light up, and the crowd was encouraged when they saw that to yell louder and louder to try to make the lights come on all the way up to the top. And at the very top, the light was red. Now, most people thought that NC State actually had a noise meter, that, you know, we were an engineering school, but that was not the case. As people found out sometimes later, the only thing that the light meter was somebody up at the top of the Coliseum activating a board of switches, which is shown right there in that display. And all they did was flip the switches on, and that would make the lights go up. So the person who operated that switchboard learned how to maneuver the crowd and encourage them to yell louder and louder to try to get the lights to go up. Today the light meter is, the noise meter is not on, so I can't actually show it to you, but when you come back to the Coliseum, make sure you stop right here and you can activate that noise meter yourself. Okay, we've also got displays of our Wolfpacks who've played professional sports right over there, and another really nice display of our athletes who have participated in the Olympics. All right, we're going to walk over in this direction, and you're about to see what I consider to be the most spectacular part of the renovation of Reynolds Coliseum. So follow me. Okay, I hope you got a good view. That is an absolutely gorgeous arena as it's been renovated. They moved the basketball court, which used to be right in the middle of this building, down to the south. And they replaced the first 5 rows of seats on the sides in the sections right in the middle. And so now we have a 5,500 seat arena that's used by women's basketball, women's volleyball, gymnastics, wrestling, and our rifle team. And the court is named for Kay Yao. I hope you can see her name on the court. And the arena is named for Coach Jim Valvano, and his name is over on the side. So Kay Yao Court in Valvano Arena in Reynolds Coliseum. And if you follow Wolfpack women's basketball, you may notice that some of the women's team have already come out. They're on the court right now getting ready for a practice. So who knows, Coach Moore may show up sometime soon as well. But it makes for a not only a beautiful, but a really accommodating arena for those sports that I mentioned. And if you come to a basketball game, volleyball, wrestling, gymnastics, it doesn't matter. If you come to an event here and this arena is full, it is really a lot of fun. This place really starts to jump when you've got over 5,000 people in this arena. I didn't point out, but the bleachers on both sides and both end zones can be pulled out for the game. So right now, the bleachers are all pushed back. And so you don't really see it like it's going to look for a game. Okay, we're going to go around this way to the concourse. Okay, come on around the corner and join me in the concourse that is on the west side of the building. The concourse behind me goes all the way down the side, around the south end, and then up all the way to towards the front on the east side. When they redesigned the Coliseum and renovated the Coliseum, they decided to put a display of each team on the inside. So as you go down the concourse behind me, if you look to your left, you will find a display for every team. And as we go down, you may be able to get a glimpse of the first display, which is of our men's basketball team. And it's got some really cool stuff in there about our 1974 and our 1983 national championship teams. While I'm here, I need to point out that there's a great photograph right there of David Thompson, who was a member of the 1974 team. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about him later, but if you look at that photograph, it was taken from the floor, but David Thompson's feet are above the head of one of the players on the other team. Okay, as you go down the concourse, on the outside, there is a picture and information about every one of our All-American athletes here at NC State, men and women in all sports. And it goes all the way around both sides, all of our All-American players. So let's go down the concourse. This is a very popular display right here, men's basketball. Gymnastics, volleyball, and I like the way they put the wolf eyes at certain places in the Coliseum, so that when you come around the corner and go down those steps, you're looking right into the eyes of the wolf. Another popular display, our men's baseball team. Okay, we've just come around the corner, and we're going to go down these steps into the south lobby. Okay, we're in the south lobby. Most folks never get back here, and right now it's set up for a class, so we got some students in this space. But I wanted to show you the display that we have for our logos, starting with our very first logo back in 1893, A&M College, and then all the way through up to our current Block S that you see over to the right. There's the diamond NC State logo, and all the logos have an S in them except one. And that's the very first one when we were A&M College. Okay, we're going to go to the other side. Okay, on this wall, we've got the history of the mascots at NC State, starting with the Wolves back in 1958, all the way up to our current mascots, Mr. and Ms. Wolf. And take a look at the mascots back in 58 and 68, and tell me if you think they look like wolves. I don't know about you, but that one right there looks like a giant rat. Okay, follow me. Now, this is a cool spot when I do the tour, because on the tour, and I've got a group of people, I bring them around this corner, because this is the corner that the student athletes come around when they're about to go out on the floor of the Coliseum. The steps that are right over there go right down to the basement level of the Coliseum where the locker rooms are located. So when there's going to be a game, the student athletes go into the locker rooms, they dress out for the game, they come up those steps, and then they come around this corner and onto the court. And when I've got a group of people on tour, I like to let them see how it feels to come around this corner and go out onto that court. And I tell them to imagine that you're a part of the team and you're coming out on the court, and there are 5,500 people in the stands yelling and screaming for you. I mean, it is an incredible feeling. So come on, follow me. Okay, that's what happens when you come out onto this court. A couple of members of our women's team are on the court right now. So let's go down this way. Now, do you think I can get those two players to wave to us? Camille, wave to the camera. See a wolf sign. There you go. Okay, come on out. We're at center court on KL Court. And this is where I like to tell my favorite story from NC State. Back in 1974, our men's basketball team won the national championship. And I could talk all day about that team and about that season. But the story that I want to tell you happened the week before we won the national championship. Now, this team had David Thompson and a bunch of other guys, and David Thompson, in my judgment, is the greatest athlete that I have ever seen at NC State. People don't believe it when I tell them that he could take a couple of steps and jump and touch the top of that backboard. And if you look at the top of that backboard and you think about David Thompson at 6'5", he had long arms and a 44-inch vertical leap. He was an amazing athlete. So we had won the ACC championship and all the early games in the NCAA tournament. The only team that beat us that season was UCLA. They had another great team that featured Bill Walton. The week before, we were scheduled to play UCLA again. In the first game of the Final Four, the basketball team would come out onto this court every afternoon for practice. And I will confess, I left my office on Monday afternoon and I came down to Reynolds to watch the practice. Well, every day I came back, and every day the crowd in this arena watching the Wolfpack practice got bigger and bigger. And finally, on the last day, Friday before we were scheduled to play UCLA again, when I got down to the Coliseum, the building was at least half full. That meant there were 6,000 people in this arena to watch practice. The team came out, those doors right down there, and Coach Sloan said, okay, warm up with the weave drill. And if you've ever played basketball, you know that the weave drill is one where there are 3 lines on each on one end of the court, 3 lines of players, and the first player in each line takes off and they run down the court, weaving in and out like this, passing the ball back and forth, no dribbles. And when they get to the other end of the court, the player that catches the ball closest to the basket will shoot a layup. Now this is just a warm-up drill. So Coach Sloan said, okay, let's do the weave drill. And they started, they were at that end, and after about 5 or 6 minutes or so, David Thompson and 2 other guys came to the front of the line and they took off, weaving in and out as they ran down the court. And as David Thompson approached the midcourt circle, which meant he was right about there, the pass came to him, he caught it, he took 2 steps, and while he did that, he put the ball around behind his back and brought it around in one smooth, fluid motion. And on his second step, right in the middle of the midcourt circle, he went straight up. And when he went straight up, you could have heard a pin drop in this arena. 6,000 people were saying to themselves, are you kidding me? He's going up for a jump shot at midcourt? A 44-inch vertical leap. When he got to the top of his leap, he flicked his hand like that. The ball went up like this. It came down. It missed the backboard. It missed the rim. The only thing it hit was the bottom of the net. And when that happened, I thought the roof on this building was going to come off of the building. Coach Sloan threw up his hands like this and said, practice is over. And they ran off the court, and the next day they beat UCLA. I call that the shot that won the national championship. Okay, let's move this way. So right here would be bleachers when there's going to be a game, and those bleachers on the side would be pulled out also. So take another look at the top of that backboard and think about the fact that David Thompson could touch the top of that backboard. Okay, we're going to go back to the Grand Hall. 1979 and 1980 national championships in women's cross country right there. And our 1974 and 83 national championship teams right there. One thing that I forgot to mention earlier is who lives in this building and where they're located. The women's basketball program is in the upper level in that corner, and the women's volleyball team is on the upper level in that corner. And then the Navy, Marine Corps, ROTC are on the level that we're on right now, and they are in that corner. The Army, ROTC, is in the back corner, and the Air Force, ROTC, is in the back corner over on that side. So we've got 3 teams, well, 2 teams, women's basketball and women's volleyball, that have their headquarters in this building. There are 3 other teams that compete in the building, and then we got the 3 ROTC units who also call this building home. Okay, that concludes the tour. You guys have been awesome. I've never had a group that looks as good as you guys. And we're going to take a little time now to look at some slides about the history of this building. So don't go away.
Thank you to everyone who has submitted questions so far. Please continue to do so throughout this presentation. And now, here's Dr. Stafford.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm live on the NC State campus, and have just watched the video along with all of you. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that it gave you a good image of what the inside of Reynolds Coliseum looks like. It's really beautiful, and if you've never been back to see the building on the inside since the renovation, you've got to find a time to come back and take a look. Of course, the building is closed right now because of the coronavirus, but when we get past that, please come back and get a good look at the inside. Now, the rest of my time today, I want to give you information about the history of this building. And the title that I use for this part of my tour is on the screen right now. Reynolds Coliseum, the most famous building, not on the NC State campus, not in the city of Raleigh, but in the entire state of North Carolina. And I'm about to prove what I just said right now. So what did Reynolds Coliseum look like in the summer of 1940? There it is, just a big open field. In the summer of 1940, State College sponsored a week-long program called Farmers Week. And during that week, people from all over the state, east, west, all over, came to the State College campus for this program. And in 1940, the college had scheduled one event as a part of this program that was scheduled to be held in a large outdoor arena. And what do you think happened on the day that event was scheduled? Yeah, you know what happened. It rained all day, and they had to cancel the event. And when that happened, some folks at State College decided that the college needed to have a large indoor arena. So they began to campaign for this. David Clark was the leader of that campaign. And by 1942, he and others had secured enough support so that they could begin the construction on this site of a large indoor arena. And that construction started in 1942, and 1 year later, in the summer of 1943, there they are breaking ground for the construction. That's Alexander Hall in the background. And by the summer of 1943, that's what Reynolds Coliseum looked like, just a large steel framework. And that summer, the college was told that they could not obtain any more steel for the construction of this building. I mean, after all, we were in the middle of World War II. So Reynolds Coliseum stood there just like that, without any changes or any work done on it, for 5 years. And here are some additional pictures that show you what it looked like during that time. This one was taken from the inside looking to the north. The railroad track is right behind that person's head. There's a great picture showing Frank Thompson Gym with the framework in the background. Another shot of the baseball field, which is was located where the parking deck is today. And if you look at the top of that slide, you'll see the steel framework for the building. Now, something very, very important happened in 1946. And many of you may know what that was. In 1946, State College hired a new basketball coach. His name was Everett Case. He had coached high school basketball in Indiana for 23 years. He had won 4 state championships, high school championships in the state of Indiana. And if you know anything about Indiana basketball in high school, it is a really, really big deal. He had never coached in college, and he was offered the job, and he came in the summer of 1946 to coach at State College. Now, what did he do? He recruited players for his Wolfpack team from Indiana and the Midwest, the area that he knew very well. And those guys were really good players. They came to State College, and what happened? All of a sudden, the Wolfpack began to beat everybody. They beat Duke, they beat Carolina, they beat Wake Forest, they beat almost everybody they played because of the talent that Everett Case brought to the campus. And those early games were all played over in Frank Thompson Gymnasium. Now, when that happened, the interest in basketball and the excitement about basketball overcame the previous interest in football. And all of a sudden, basketball became the most significant part of the athletic program at State College. To give you an example, when the team was playing in Frank Thompson Gym, there was one big game against Carolina, and the students on campus wanted to see that game. It was sold out. They went over and they crawled through windows. They went through unlocked doors. They did anything they could to get inside Frank Thompson Gym for that game. The word got out that the place was packed, well, actually beyond packed, and the fire marshal came over and took one look, and he canceled the game. That's a good example of what happened to basketball at State College after Everett Case got here. Now, Everett Case went over to that steel framework that had been built. He knew that when that building was finished, that his team was going to play there. So he looked at it, and what do you think he said? He said, that is not big enough. He said, that's not big enough, and when you resume construction, I want you to come in and take both ends of that steel framework and move them out like that. And that's what they did in 1948 when they resumed construction of the building. Pulling those ends out like that added 2,400 seats. Everett Case wanted to make sure that the arena in which his Wolfpack was going to play was larger than the arena at that university over to the west, the dark blue university, Cameron Indoor Stadium. And once they pulled the ends out, the Coliseum for his team would seat 12,400, a lot bigger than Cameron Indoor. So there's a great picture of Everett Case cutting down the net, which is one of the traditions that he brought to State College and now is a tradition all across the country for every single team. Okay, they put the cornerstone in 1949, and the building was finished in that fall, and that's what it looked like when the building was finished. I mean, that is an absolutely gorgeous building, and can you imagine the pride that must have been on this campus in the fall of 1949 when you could tell people, tell your friends, your family, that you were a student or that you worked at a campus that had a building like that. It was very large and it was very beautiful. So, the first event that was held in this building, I'm sure you might guess correctly, was a basketball game. It took place on December the 2nd, 1949. NC State played Washington and Lee, and there is a picture taken during that very first game. Now, a lot of people ask me, why did Everett Case schedule the first game in the new Reynolds Coliseum against a school like Washington and Lee? And why didn't he play Carolina or Duke or Wake Forest? Well, it's my opinion only, that he wanted to make absolutely certain that he won the first game in Reynolds Coliseum. And they did win. They beat Washington and Lee 75-55. Now take a look at the top of that picture. And do you see that haze that's up there? Back when the Coliseum opened, you were allowed to smoke during the game. And back in 1949, most people smoked, and they smoked during the game, and the smoke would rise up to the top of the arena. I've talked to people who went to those early games and had seats that were up at the top, and they told me that they could barely see the team down on the court because of all that smoke. Now, how long do you think it took for State College, later State University, NC State University, to put our first women's team on the floor in Reynolds? It took 25 years. The first game for the women's team was December the 7th, 1974. And the coach of that team was Peanut Doak. Before I get to that, here are a couple more shots of early games in Reynolds. And again, you can see the smoke haze up at the top. There's a picture of the first women's team. I couldn't find one of them on the court in Reynolds, but they're outside Carmichael Gym. And they played their first game, as I said, in December of 1974. The Wolfpack women beat UVA 57-45. Now, the next year, our athletic director, Willis Casey, hired a new coach for our women's team. And I hope all of you know who that was, and hope you know that she became one of NC State's legendary coaches. There's a great picture of her. She coached the Wolfpack women for 34 years. She coached our women's team to a gold medal in the 1988 Olympics, and the court in Reynolds Coliseum is named for her. She has been inducted into every basketball Hall of Fame there is. And if you look real close, on the front row right behind her, you might spot somebody that you know. Take a good close look. Okay, what I'm going to do now is cover certain categories of events in this building. And when people think about Reynolds Coliseum, many of them think about basketball. Now, I could talk about basketball in Reynolds Coliseum all day, but I want to just give you some highlights to illustrate how significant this has been a part of the building. The Atlantic Coast Conference Tournament, which, as you know, today is one of the premier events of in all categories all across the nation. The ACC tournament was held in Reynolds Coliseum for the first 12 years of its existence. Starting in 1949 until 1960, a holiday basketball tournament that was organized and started by Everett Case and some other folks called the Dixie Classic was held in Reynolds Coliseum. And every year in that tournament, State College, Duke, Carolina, and Wake Forest were scheduled to play against 4 outside teams that Everett Case invited in. And this tournament very quickly became the major event in North Carolina. Now, I didn't say the major basketball event. I said the major event in the state. It really became a big deal, and if you could get tickets to the Dixie Classic, and you could pull those out and show those tickets to somebody, hey, you couldn't do any better than that. So the Dixie Classic became a really big deal in North Carolina, and all the games were played in Reynolds Coliseum. And then in 1960, some of the players from State College and Carolina got mixed up with some gamblers from New York City who paid them money to shave points, and they were discovered. There was a big scandal, and Bill Friday shut down the Dixie Classic. This slide shows the program for 1953, so you can see the teams that were invited that year. And by the way, if you love basketball and you love NC State, then this little book that I just showed you called The Classic is a very, very good book about the Dixie Classic, and if you haven't read it, you need to. The Southern Conference Tournament was held in the building for many years. There have been many NCAA regional tournaments. The women's ACC tournament was held here in 79 and 82. And in 1972, the U.S. men's Olympic basketball team lived in our dorms on campus, and practiced and prepared for the Summer Olympics in Reynolds Coliseum. The Harlem Globetrotters have played here many times. There have been many high school holiday tournaments. There have been 2 men's NCAA championship teams, 74 and 83, that have come out of Reynolds, and there's been 1 women's Final Four team in 1998. There have been 10 men's ACC championship teams that came out of Reynolds, and there have been 4 women's ACC championship teams. Now, today, the women's basketball team excuse me, continues to play in Reynolds, but there are 4 other teams that also call Reynolds home. And here they are: volleyball, women's volleyball, and as I said, women's basketball, gymnastics, see those wolf eyes in the background, wrestling, and most people don't know this, but we have a rifle team, and they compete in Reynolds Coliseum. Now, the next category I want to cover is the Friends of the College, the FOTC. This was a classical musical concert series that was started in 1959 and ran for over 30 years. It finally wrapped up in 1994. And every year, world-renowned groups that were famous orchestras or performers from all around the world were brought into Reynolds Coliseum for performances. And you know, up until that time, if you wanted to see groups like those, you had to go to New York City or down to Atlanta or Miami. And all of a sudden, people like the following groups, and I'm going to read off just a sample. The Leningrad Philharmonic, and there's a picture of them in Reynolds Coliseum. The Vienna Symphony, Van Cliburn, Itzhak Perlman, the Metropolitan Opera performing Madame Butterfly, the New York Ballet, Beverly Sills and Nina Horn, Isaac Stern, Leontine Price, and Leonard Bernstein. You know, these were not local groups. These were world-renowned groups, and this concert series attracted people from all over North Carolina, and it really changed the image of NC State. It really had a very positive impact on the way we were perceived. Okay, there have been a lot of other concerts other than classical music in Reynolds. And I'm going to once again just read off a sample of these performers. And wherever you are watching this, you know, if you've heard of that performer, or even better, if you were there when this person performed in Reynolds, you know, you can give a shout out at your house or wherever you are. Here is a sample of other performers: Louis Armstrong, the Rolling Stones, Elton John, Andy Williams, Billy Joel, Peter, Paul and Mary, Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers, The Fifth Dimensions, Stan Getz, Van Halen, the Kingston Trio, Hank Williams Jr., and this guy right here, Bob Hope. When I show this slide to our students today, their eyes roll back. They don't have any idea who he is. But he was a very famous comedian, movie star, and there he is at RDU being met by some of our Air Force ROTC cadets to be escorted to Reynolds Coliseum. Now, how am I doing so far to convince you this is the most famous building in North Carolina? Hey, look, I'm just getting warmed up. So let's take a category of famous people. What about presidents of the United States? Now, if you counted up all the presidents of the United States who have come to NC State, who have been on our campus, that number would be 9. But if you look at the ones who actually went into and spoke in Reynolds Coliseum, there are 5. Were you there for any of these speeches? John F. Kennedy in September 1960, right before he was elected. LBJ in the fall of 1964 on the campaign trail, and there's a very young Bill Friday just to the left of Lady Bird. Ronald Reagan in 1985, it was September, I was there, the Coliseum was packed, and it must have been 120 degrees. When he was introduced, he got up, took off his jacket, and invited others to do the same, and when he finished his speech, his entire shirt was soaking wet from perspiration. And look at how they tried to keep him cool. That little fan right beside the podium didn't do one bit of good. All right, here's number 4, Bill Clinton, with John Coggin, one of our outstanding students, back in 2009. And I'm very excited because John is on the tour today. He's over across the pond in England. John, I hope you're doing well. And then here is President number 5. Barack Obama has spoken in Reynolds Coliseum twice, once in 2008 when he was on the campaign trail, and then again in 2011. This picture was taken in 2011, and when he finished his speech, he told the crowd that he wanted to speak to somebody in the audience who could give him some good advice on what to do in the Middle East. Now, did you hear what I said? Take a look at this picture. It's okay to laugh. This is a joke, folks. I was on the front of the rope when he came down from the podium and worked the crowd. And when he got to me and we were shaking hands and eyeball to eyeball, the university photographer snapped that picture. Now, a lot of people ask me what advice I gave him. That's between me and the president. Okay, can we identify any other famous folks who have spoken in Reynolds? Did you know that Martin Luther King spoke in Reynolds Coliseum in July 1966? Today, most people don't know that. Who was the most famous American architect of all time? There's Frank Lloyd Wright speaking in Reynolds in the spring of 1950. And if any of you remember, the dean of our College of Design, Henry Campheffner, seated right behind him in front of the curtain. This is a picture of Adlai Stevenson giving the Harrelson address in 1962. He was a former governor of Illinois, ran for president against Dwight Eisenhower twice, later ambassador to the United Nations. You can't see his face, but that's Adlai Stevenson. How about these famous folks? This is in 1981 when Mr. and Ms. Wolfe were joined together in holy matrimony by the demon deacon from Wake Forest. A very famous group of folks right there. And here is a picture taken of inside Reynolds Coliseum when the Vice President of the United States, Spiro Agnew, in 1970 spoke in Reynolds. And the banner says, "Spiro is our hero." Well, it's probably a good thing that he's not in this picture because a little later on he got into a lot of trouble and he had to resign. So let me note that Michelle Obama, Hillary Clinton, along with Lady Gaga, Billy Graham, Charlie Rose, those are all folks who have spoken in Reynolds Coliseum. Okay, what I want to do now is cover events. And here is the first category, the ice capades or the icicles. When they built the Coliseum, they installed equipment that could put water on the floor and freeze the water to create a skating rink. So during the 1950s, you could come into Reynolds when the ice was on the floor, and students who were enrolled during those years have told me that they remember coming over and paying 25 cents to rent a pair of skates to skate on the floor of Reynolds Coliseum. Here's a program for the icicles. Here are some banners on the front pillars of the Coliseum for the icicles. Look how close you could park to the front door back then. And here's a picture of the ice on the floor of the Coliseum. Okay, the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus were performed in Reynolds Coliseum many times during the early years. Starting in 1950, all of the NC State commencements were held in Reynolds until we moved out to the football stadium and now in the arena at the PNC. So a lot of people have received their degrees over many years in Reynolds Coliseum. The installation of our chancellors have always been in Reynolds, and the installation of two of the university presidents, Bill Friday and Molly Broad, were also held in Reynolds. University Open House, the freshman convocation and honors convocation, celebrations, our NCAA championship celebrations, our 125th year anniversary, legacy luncheons, African American step shows, the North Carolina Science Olympiads, and the governor's inaugural balls have all been held in Reynolds. And a recent addition, which has become a really, really wonderful tradition on campus, is the ring ceremony, the presentation of the class rings to our students. Now, this final category I say for last because it means a great deal to me and many, many others. NC State has always been involved with training and preparing leaders for our nation's military. We are a land-grant college created under the Land-Grant Act of 1862, and that legislation requires us to teach agriculture, mechanic arts, which today, of course, is engineering, and military science. So we have always been involved with the military. And here's a picture of the very first group of students that I could find that show our students in a military uniform. And if you look at the bottom right-hand corner, I believe the date is 1899. I can't see that very well from where I am. At any rate, over all the years, and then when the Coliseum was built and opened in 1949, from then up until the present day, our military training has taken place in Reynolds Coliseum. So thousands of students have drilled there, have been commissioned there, have attended military balls and other military events. Here's a picture of the Army ROTC cadets about to be commissioned in the late 50s. I think the date was 56 or 57. I haven't been able to count them up, but I think it's pretty well over 100 cadets in the Army who are about to be commissioned in Reynolds Coliseum. We claim that we have trained and prepared more young men and women who've gone on to become generals in the nation's military than any other college in the nation, except for the military academies. And so this is a very proud part of our history. Here are some pictures. This one is in Reynolds Coliseum that show an Army lieutenant just commissioned. These are Air Force cadets at an Air Force base in Florida, and these are Navy and Marine Corps midshipmen in a classroom at State. So here is a picture of our most famous ROTC military graduate, General Hugh Shelton, who was graduated in 1963, commissioned as an Army lieutenant. He fought in Vietnam. He later was promoted to 4-star general, and then later selected to be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And that's the role that he's in when this picture was taken in the White House with Bill Clinton as president and General Shelton over to the left as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And where was General Shelton trained and commissioned? Right here in Reynolds Coliseum. Okay, these last slides, I put them in for fun. When students today look at these slides, their eyes roll back. Here's what it looked like back in the 70s when you went into Reynolds to register for classes. And here's what it looked like the next day when you came back to Reynolds to make changes in your schedule. It's called Zoo Day. And here is a picture of students camping out on the front of Reynolds to get those good tickets for a basketball game. Now, to wrap up, I need to mention that the athletic department decided in the spring of 2015 that the building needed to be renovated. It was shut down. The building was demolished on the inside, on the lower level, and it was renovated into the space that you saw on the tour. And that was finished in September of 2016. One of the main changes they made that people always ask about is the addition of air conditioning inside the main part of the building. When people walk in now and they've not been in before the renovation was completed, that's the first thing that they notice. Okay, I rest my case. Can you think of any other building anywhere in North Carolina that could match what I've just covered and presented to you about Reynolds Coliseum? Oh, I did forget one thing real quick. The building is named for William Neal Reynolds. And how did his name get on the building? Well, he was one of 5 brothers who owned and operated R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company. And they had all given money to State College, primarily to support faculty members who were doing research on, what would you imagine, how to grow tobacco. Well, when William Neal Reynolds' niece found out how much money he had given to support the construction of Reynolds, she thought he had not given enough. And so she gave $100,000 of her own money, which at that time represented 1/3 of the cost of the building. I know it's hard to believe, but the budget for the construction of Reynolds was just a little over $300,000. So she gave $100,000, but in her uncle's name. And that's how his name got on this magnificent building. Okay, questions?
All right, Dr. Stafford, we've had a few questions come in. The very first one is, when did they stop allowing students to camp out for basketball or football tickets at Reynolds?
Well, the location for the camp out has moved around quite a bit. As you can see on this slide, the camp out was on the front sidewalk in front of the building. In other years, it was across the street, and then it's been used into the courtyard around Tally. It's been held in different locations. And each year, that location is worked out between student government and the university administration. And I don't recall off the top of my head the last time that the camp out was in front of Reynolds. Next question.
All right. Someone said, Dr. Stafford, Jerry Byer here, class of 73. Were you at the 1974 NCAA basketball tournament game where David Thompson was injured and taken to Rex Hospital, only to return later in the game with a bandage around his head? If you were there, what was it like? What was the atmosphere like inside of Reynolds?
Well, that's a really good question, and I wish I could say that I was there, but I was not. I have heard many people who were there talk about what it was like when that happened. When he fell and lay on the floor, people tell me that you could hear a pin drop anywhere in the arena. And then when he came back, they took him out to the hospital, and then when they brought him back in, and people could see that he looked like he was okay, it was just the opposite reaction. I wish I had been there to experience that. Next question.
All right, so the next question, and we've probably got time for one more. If you guys have any burning ones, feel free to submit them. Someone asked, do you think the noise meter will ever be put back above the court? We really miss it.
Yeah, I miss it too. I'm not sure. I doubt that it will. Um, it's in a location now so that people can see it, and we couldn't do it on the tour earlier, but normally there's a lever that you can slide across and put the lights on the light meter on as it goes up. So it's in a location where you can see it and see how it operates and how it works, but it doesn't represent the noise in a game. So that decision is one that the athletic department would have to make, and I don't have any indication from them that they want to put it back up for a game.
All right, and the last question. When I was a teenager, I attended a Jimmy V basketball camp at Reynolds. Do they still conduct camps for kids in the building?
Yes, absolutely. And not just basketball, but other sports as well. So you can check that out if you go online and look at athletic camps. You can get information about those.
And the last question is one that I can happily answer. Will this be recorded to view later? And the answer is yes. This recording will be sent out to all registered attendees once we finish recording. And so with that, I will say thank you, Dr. Stafford, so much.
You're very welcome, and thank all of you for being here.
All right. Have a good night, y'all.